Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main view screen. His ship moved slowly through space near the edge of human territory. The Horizon was not a warship, but an exploration vessel designed for peaceful missions. Jake had been commanding her for 3 years now and loved the quiet work of mapping new systems and studying distant planets. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up beside him holding a data tablet. She was his second in command and had served with him since the beginning. Lisa was smart and careful, which made her perfect for exploration work. She handed him the tablet showing their next destination. "The Kepler system looks interesting, Captain," Lisa said in her calm voice. 3 planets that might support life and several moons worth investigating. Jake nodded and looked at the data. The Galactic Coalition had approved their mission to survey this area. Humans had been members of the Coalition for 20 years now. It was a peaceful alliance of different species who worked together to explore space and share knowledge. Most alien races treated humans fairly well, though some still saw them as newcomers who did not belong. Chief Engineer Ryan Blake appeared on the bridge wiping oil from his hands. He was a big man who knew everything about keeping ships running. Ryan had fixed more problems than anyone could count, and always found ways to make things work better. He looked worried today, which was unusual for him. "Captain, we have a problem with the main drive," Ryan reported. "Nothing serious, but we need to stop at a station for repairs. I recommend Kepler Prime since it is close," Jake agreed. Kepler Prime was a neutral trading station where many species came to do business. It would be a good place to get repairs and supplies. He ordered the navigation officer to set course for the station. The journey to Kepler Prime took 2 days. When they arrived, Jake could see dozens of ships from different species docked at the huge station. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Humans had built similar stations, but this one was much older and larger. Communication Officer Amy Carter received docking instructions from station control. Amy was young but very good at her job. She could speak several alien languages and always handled first contact situations well. Today she seemed nervous about something. "Captain, I am picking up a lot of Zephyrian ships around the station," Amy reported. "More than usual." Jake frowned. The Zephyrians were a warlike species that controlled a large empire. They had never attacked humans directly, but they made no secret of their dislike for human expansion into space. Zephyrian ships were built for war with heavy armor and powerful weapons. Their crews were trained from birth to fight and conquer. The Horizon docked without problems, and Jake went aboard the station to arrange repairs. The corridors were crowded with beings from many different worlds. He saw the tall blue Centauri, with their elegant movements, and the small furry vegan traders with their quick speech. Near the central hub, he noticed several Zephyrian warriors in their black armor, watching everything with cold eyes. Jake found the human diplomatic office where Ambassador Elena Rodriguez was working. Elena was one of the best diplomats humanity had ever produced. She could negotiate with anyone and had prevented several conflicts through careful talking. Today she looked tired and stressed. "Jake, I am glad you are here," Elena said when she saw him. "We have serious problems. The Zephyrians are demanding that humans stop all expansion beyond our current borders. They claim we are taking territory that belongs to them." Jake sat down across from her desk. This was worse than he had expected. Human colonies were growing and spreading to new worlds every year. Most of these worlds were empty or had no intelligent life. Humans had always followed coalition rules about colonization and had never taken anything that belonged to another species. "What does the coalition say about this?" Jake asked. Elena shook her head. "The Coalition Council is trying to stay neutral. They do not want to anger the Zephyrians, who have more ships and weapons than everyone else combined. Some council members think humans should accept the demands to keep peace." Before Jake could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Amy Carter's voice came through his communicator with urgency in her tone. "Captain, you need to get back to the ship right away. We are receiving emergency signals from New Austin Colony." Jake ran through the station corridors back to his ship. New Austin was one of the newest human colonies with over 2 million people. It was a peaceful world, where families went to start new lives farming and building cities. The colony had no military defenses since it was far from any hostile territory. On the bridge of the horizon, Jake watched the main screen in horror. Long-range sensors showed 12 massive objects moving through space toward New Austin. The objects were moving faster than normal ships, and their energy signatures matched Zephyrian antimatter missiles. Each missile was powerful enough to destroy an entire continent. "How long until impact?" Jake asked Amy. 6 hours, Captain," Amy replied with fear in her voice. "The colony is trying to evacuate major cities, but there is not enough time." Lisa. Hayes worked at her station calculating evacuation possibilities. Even with every transport ship they have, only a few 100,000 people can be moved to safety. Most of the colonists will have no way to escape. Jake watched the tactical display showing the missiles approaching the helpless colony world. This was not a military target, but a world full of families and children who had never hurt anyone. The Zephyrians were about to commit murder on a scale that would shock the entire galaxy. Ryan Blake came onto the bridge carrying a toolkit. "Captain, I can push our engines beyond normal limits. We might be able to reach New Austin in 5 hours, but the ship will not be able to fight those missiles. The Horizon has no weapon systems." On the communication channels, Jake could hear messages from across human space as the news spread. Other human ships were racing toward New Austin, but none would arrive in time. The Zephyrians had planned this attack perfectly to catch the colony defenseless. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez appeared on screen from the station. Behind her, Jake could see Zephyrian War Marshal Thexvar with his scarred face and cold eyes. The Zephyrian leader was speaking to reporters from many species. "Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge Zephyrian authority," Thexvar declared. "The humans have forgotten their place in the galaxy. They expand like a disease across space, taking what is not theirs. Today we remind them that some species are meant to rule while others are meant to serve." Jake felt anger burning in his chest as he listened to the aliens' words. New Austin Colony had been established legally with full coalition approval. The colonists were good people who just wanted to live in peace and build better lives for their children. The missiles continued racing toward their targets while the galaxy watched and waited. Most species expected to see another human world, destroyed as a warning to others. None of them knew that humanity had been preparing for this day since they first joined the coalition. The greatest mistake the Zephyrians made was believing that humans were as helpless as they appeared. The 12 Zephyrian missiles streaked through space toward New Austin Colony like harbingers of death. Each one carried enough antimatter to turn a city into glass and ash. On worlds across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the news feeds, expecting to witness the destruction of another human settlement. Governor Paul Martinez stood in the emergency command center beneath New Austin's capital city. Around him, dozens of technicians worked frantically to coordinate evacuation efforts. The governor was a calm man who had led the colony through many challenges, but nothing like this. His hands shook as he watched the countdown timer showing 4 hours until impact. "Sir, we have managed to evacuate 300,000 people from the major cities," reported his aide, Jenny Brooks. "The transport ships are overloaded but still taking on passengers. However, most of our people will not reach the shelters in time." Martinez nodded grimly. The colony had been built for peace and growth, not war. There were no military installations or defensive weapons on the entire planet. The settlers had come here to escape the violence of older worlds and build something better for their children. Suddenly, every screen in the command center flickered and changed. A woman's face appeared that Martinez recognized as Dr. Kate Sullivan, the colony's chief scientist. Kate had designed most of the automated systems that ran the power plants and communication networks. She looked different now, with a serious expression that the governor had never seen before. "Governor Martinez, please listen carefully," Kate said from the screen. "I need you to authorize Emergency Protocol 7 immediately. Use your command codes and do not ask questions. Time is running short." Martinez hesitated. Emergency Protocol 7 did not exist in any manual he had ever seen. He had helped write the colony's emergency procedures himself, and there were only 6 protocols. But Kate Sullivan was the smartest person on New Austin, and had never led him wrong. "I authorize Emergency Protocol 7, Martinez said clearly, into his microphone. The moment he spoke those words, everything changed. Deep beneath the surface of New Austin, massive machines that no one knew existed suddenly came to life. Power systems that had been hidden inside the colony's infrastructure began drawing energy from sources that should not have been there. Above the planet's atmosphere, objects that looked like asteroids began moving into new positions. On his ship racing toward the colony, Captain Jake Morrison watched his sensors in amazement. The Horizon's long-range scanners were showing energy, readings from New Austin that made no sense. The peaceful farming colony was suddenly generating more power than most military bases. "Captain, I am reading massive energy barriers forming around the major population centers," reported Lisa Hayes from her station. "The power levels are impossible. No human colony should have technology like this." Jake stared at the display showing New Austin surrounded by glowing shields of energy. The barriers were huge, covering entire cities and growing stronger every second. But humans had never developed defensive technology this advanced. The Coalition's most powerful species could not create shields like these. Communication Officer Amy Carter received an incoming message that made her eyes grow wide. "Captain, we are getting a signal from Admiral Steve Collins aboard the UES Defiance. He wants to speak with you immediately." Jake had heard of Admiral Collins but had never met him. Collins commanded humanity's deep space exploration fleet and was said to be one of the most experienced officers in human service. The Defiance was supposedly a research vessel, like the Horizon, but much larger. Collins appeared on the main screen, and Jake was surprised to see that the older man looked completely calm. Most human commanders would be panicking with missiles heading for a defenseless colony. Instead, Collins seemed almost satisfied, as if everything was going according to plan. "Captain Morrison, I am sure you have many questions about what you are seeing," Collins said with a slight smile. "Let me explain what is really happening. For 20 years since we joined the Galactic Coalition, humanity has been preparing for this day. Every colony, every ship, every outpost has been equipped with defensive systems that other species know nothing about." Jake felt his mouth drop open. "Admiral, are you saying that New Austin has hidden weapons?" "Not weapons, Captain. Something much better. We have been watching and learning from every species in the Coalition, every piece of technology they shared. With us thinking we were too primitive to understand it fully, we took their gifts and made them into something they never imagined. On New Austin, the 12 antimatter missiles reached the planet's outer atmosphere. Each one was programmed to detonate at a specific altitude to maximize destruction on the surface. The Zephyrians had calculated exactly how much power was needed to kill every human on the world. The missiles struck the energy barriers surrounding the cities, and something incredible happened. Instead of breaking through the shields, the weapons simply stopped. The antimatter warheads detonated harmlessly against barriers that absorbed their entire destructive force. Not a single building on New Austin was damaged, and not one person was hurt. Across the galaxy, beings watching the newsfeed sat in stunned silence. The humans had done something impossible. They had stopped weapons that could destroy planets using technology that should not exist. War Marshal Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. His perfect weapons had failed completely against a species he considered barely above animals. The missiles that should have wiped out New Austin had been turned into harmless light shows. "How is this possible?" Thexvar roared at his officers. "No species in the galaxy has defensive technology that advanced. The humans are primitives who joined the Coalition only yesterday." His science officer checked the readings again before answering nervously. "Sir, the energy patterns from the planet match no known technology. The humans appear to have developed something entirely new." Back on Kepler Prime Station, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez watched the news feeds with growing excitement. She had spent years negotiating with alien species who treated humans as junior partners in the Coalition. Now she saw the shocked faces of diplomats who were beginning to understand that they had been wrong about humanity. Dr. Peter Clark appeared on communication channels across human space. Clark was humanity's chief scientist and had worked with the Coalition's technology exchange programs for many years. Most aliens thought he was a friendly researcher who asked too many questions about their equipment. "My fellow humans and friends in the Coalition," Clark said calmly, "what you have witnessed today is the result of 20 years of careful preparation. We have studied every piece of technology shared with us and found ways to improve upon it. The defensive systems protecting New Austin represent the combined knowledge of dozens of species refined by human engineering. The truth was beginning to dawn on species across the galaxy. The humans had not been helpless newcomers learning from their betters. They had been students gathering knowledge from teachers who never realized how quickly their pupils were advancing. Every friendly trade agreement and technology exchange had been building toward this moment. On New Austin, Governor Martinez stood on the surface watching the aurora-like effects in the sky as the planet's shield slowly powered down. The energy barriers had saved every person on his world from certain death. Children who should have been vaporized were playing in parks while their parents stared up at the sky in wonder. Dr. Kate Sullivan joined him outside the command center. She looked tired but satisfied with her work. "Governor, I apologize for the deception, but it was necessary. The defensive systems had to remain secret until we needed them." Martinez shook his head in amazement. "Kate, how long have you known that something like this might happen?" "Since the day we founded this colony," she replied. "Humanity learned long ago that the galaxy is not a safe place. We prepared for war while hoping for peace. Today, peace was not enough. The Zephyrian attack had failed, but War Marshal Thexvar was not finished. His pride had been wounded and his empire's reputation damaged. Soon he would return with more ships and larger weapons, determined to crush the humans who had dared to embarrass him. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's defensive capabilities were only the beginning of their surprises. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council convened within hours of the failed attack on New Austin. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Chamber on the neutral world of Harmony Prime. The circular hall buzzed with nervous conversation as beings tried to understand what they had witnessed. President Helen Carter arrived representing humanity with a small delegation. She was a dignified woman in her 60s who had led Earth's government for 8 years. Helen had always presented humans as peaceful explorers, eager to learn from older civilizations. Today, she carried herself differently with quiet confidence that made other species notice. The Centauri ambassador Veltar called the session to order. The tall, blue-skinned being was known for his diplomatic skills and calm wisdom. But even Veltar seemed shaken by recent events. His long fingers trembled slightly as he activated the chamber's recording systems. "We are here to discuss the unprecedented events at New Austin Colony," Veltar announced to the assembly. "The human defensive capabilities displayed today were unknown to this council. We require explanation of how such technology was developed without coalition oversight." Murmurs filled the chamber as representatives whispered among themselves. The Andromedan delegates' tentacles writhed with nervous energy. The crystalline Rigel ambassador's body flickered with anxious light patterns. Everyone wanted answers about what humans had been hiding. President Carter rose slowly from her seat and walked to the center of the chamber. She looked around at the faces of beings who had welcomed humanity into the coalition 20 years ago, thinking they were gaining junior partners. Her voice carried clearly through the hall when she spoke. "Honored representatives, you ask how we developed such capabilities without your knowledge," Carter began calmly. "The answer is simple. We learned from all of you. Every technology you shared, every system you demonstrated, every innovation you considered routine became the foundation for our advancement." The vegan trade representative chittered anxiously. "But humans were supposed to use our technology only for peaceful purposes. The defensive systems we witnessed exceed anything in our databases." Carter nodded. "You are correct. Our technology does exceed yours. That was always the plan. Humanity has never been content to simply copy what others have done. We take ideas and make them better. We find solutions that the original creators never imagined." War Marshal Thexvar had been granted permission to address the council despite his recent aggression. The Zephyrian leader stood in his black armor, radiating anger and humiliation. His scarred face showed the strain of explaining his complete failure to destroy a human colony. "The humans have violated the spirit of coalition cooperation," Thexvar declared harshly. "They pretended to be weak while secretly building weapons of unprecedented power. They have made fools of us all with their deception." General Frank Mitchell stepped forward from the human delegation. Mitchell commanded humanity's military forces, though most species believed humans had only small defensive fleets. He was a compact man with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. War Marshal, the only deception here was your assumption that peaceful meant helpless, Mitchell said firmly. Humanity has never hidden our preparations from those who bothered to. Look carefully. Every human ship, every colony, every installation has been designed with multiple purposes from the beginning. The General activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Three-dimensional images showed human settlements across the galaxy, revealing details that made many representatives gasp in shock. The cargo vessels you see moving through your space carry enough firepower to level continents, Mitchell explained matter-of-factly. Our research stations double as military command centers. Our agricultural worlds can switch to weapons production within days. We have been preparing for war since the day we joined your coalition. Ambassador Veltar's blue skin paled to an almost white shade. General Mitchell, are you saying that humanity has been militarizing space under the cover of peaceful expansion? I am saying that humanity learned from our own history, Mitchell replied. On Earth, we survived ice ages, plagues, and global wars because we never assumed peace would last forever. When we joined the galactic community, we brought that same cautious wisdom with us. President Carter took control of the discussion again. Her voice remained calm but carried unmistakable authority. We did not deceive you about our nature. We are explorers and scientists and farmers who want to build better lives for our children. We are also the descendants of survivors who know that predators exist in every environment. The revelation was sinking in across the chamber. Humanity had not been the naive newcomers everyone believed. They had been students gathering knowledge while building the most advanced military force in known space. Every friendly gesture had served multiple purposes. Dr. Amanda Green stepped forward from the human delegation. She was a small woman who looked harmless until she began speaking about her research. Green had been working with coalition scientists for years, studying various alien technologies and biological systems. Distinguished representatives, I have spent 2 decades learning about your weapon systems, Green said pleasantly. Your energy weapons are efficient but predictable. Your armor is strong but heavy. Your ships are powerful but slow to adapt. We have designed countermeasures for every military technology in the Coalition database. The implications hit different species at different speeds. The warlike Zephyrians understood first that their military superiority was an illusion. The peaceful vegans realized that their gentle human trading partners were actually warriors in disguise. The proud Andromedans saw that their advanced civilization had been surpassed by relative newcomers. Thexvar's voice rose to a bellow that echoed through the chamber. This is intolerable. The humans have made mockery of our strength and turned our generosity against us. The Zephyrian Empire will not accept this humiliation. Then perhaps the Zephyrian Empire should have thought about that before firing antimatter missiles at civilian targets. Carter replied coldly. You attempted genocide against 2 million innocent people, including children who had never seen a weapon. Did you expect us to simply accept that? The chamber fell silent as the moral dimension of the conflict became clear. The Zephyrians had struck first against defenseless civilians. Humanity had only revealed their defensive capabilities when faced with attempted extermination. General Mitchell activated new displays showing the true extent of human military preparation. Hidden weapons platforms orbited every major trade route. Disguised warships patrolled shipping lanes under false registry. Underground facilities on 100 worlds could produce advanced weapons systems within hours. The Zephyrians are mobilizing their entire fleet as we speak, Mitchell reported. Our intelligence indicates over 10,000 warships heading for human space. War Marshal Thexvar believes overwhelming numbers will succeed where his missiles failed. Thexvar straightened, proudly despite his recent defeat. The Zephyrian Empire commands the largest fleet in galactic history. No species has ever faced our full military might and survived. The humans may have clever shields, but they cannot withstand the concentrated fire of 10,000 ships. President Carter smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a pleasant expression. War Marshal, you are about to learn the difference between having the largest fleet and having the best fleet. Size is not always an advantage when facing superior technology and tactics. The human delegation began filing out of the chamber, leaving the other species to contemplate what they had learned. Carter paused at the door and looked back at the assembled representatives. "My fellow coalition members, humanity seeks no conquest or domination," she said clearly. "We want to continue our peaceful cooperation with all species who respect our sovereignty. But let there be no misunderstanding. We will protect our people and our worlds with every means at our disposal. Those who threaten human civilians will face consequences beyond their imagination." As the humans departed, Ambassador Veltar called for immediate recess. The council needed time to process the revelation that their newest members were actually their most dangerous. Across the galaxy, military commanders began reviewing their assessments of human capabilities with growing alarm. The Zephyrian fleet continued its advance toward human space, confident in their numerical superiority. War Marshal Thexavar had no idea that humanity had been waiting 20 years for exactly this opportunity to demonstrate their true nature to the galaxy. The Zephyrian armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. 10,000 warships arranged in perfect battle formation, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. Each vessel bristled, with weapons designed to reduce worlds to ash and glass. War Marshal Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. Never before had the Zephyrian Empire assembled such overwhelming force. The humans had embarrassed him at New Austin, but numbers would tell the final story. No species could stand against this much concentrated firepower. "Report on enemy dispositions," Thexavar commanded his tactical officer. "Sir, we are detecting approximately 300 human vessels in the immediate area," the officer replied. "They appear to be standard cargo haulers, research ships, and light patrol craft. No major warships are visible." Thexavar felt contempt rising in his chest. The humans had revealed their defensive capabilities, but they still could not match Zephyrian naval power. 300 civilian ships against 10,000 battlecruisers would be a massacre that would teach the galaxy proper respect for Zephyrian might. Admiral Steve Collins watched the enemy fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the UES Defiance. The ship looked like a large research vessel to outside observers, but Collins knew better. Hidden beneath her scientific equipment and exploration gear lay weapons systems that could crack planets in half. "Admiral, the Zephyrian fleet is maintaining standard attack formation," reported Commander Rick Torres from the tactical station. Torres commanded the first wave of human ships and had been waiting years for this moment. "They still think we are helpless civilians." Collins smiled grimly. "Let them maintain that illusion a little longer, Rick. Signal all units to continue normal operations until my command. I want the Zephyrians to get close enough to see our faces when we show them what human ships can really do." Across human space, the carefully orchestrated deception continued. Cargo vessels went about their business, seemingly unaware of the massive enemy fleet approaching. Research stations maintained their scientific schedules. Colonial transports continued their regular runs between settlements. But hidden beneath the peaceful facade, the greatest military force in galactic history was preparing for battle. Every human ship carried weapons that violated known physics. Every station controlled defensive systems that could shatter entire fleets. Every world could transform from peaceful colony to military fortress in minutes. Captain Susan Lee commanded what appeared to be a simple mining vessel working the asteroid fields near the border. The ship's hull showed wear and damage from years of industrial work. Her crew of 20 looked like ordinary miners and engineers. The Zephyrians dismissed her vessel as unworthy of their attention. They had no idea that Susan Lee was one of humanity's most decorated combat commanders. Her mining ship carried experimental gravity weapons that could tear apart enemy vessels from the inside out. Her crew were all military specialists disguised as civilian workers. "Captain, the enemy fleet has passed our position," reported her navigation officer quietly. "We are now behind their main formation." Lee nodded and activated her ship's hidden communication systems. "All mining vessels, this is Foreman Lee. Begin extraction operations immediately. Target the richest deposits and work from the outside in." To any listening Zephyrians, it sounded like routine mining instructions. but every human commander understood the real meaning. The mining fleet would attack the enemy rear while the main force engaged from the front. War Marshal Thexvar grew impatient as his fleet approached the heart of human territory. Where were the defensive formations? Where were the military bases and fortress worlds? The humans seemed to be ignoring his approach entirely. "Sir, we are receiving a general transmission from the human fleet," his communication officer reported. "Put it through," Thexvar commanded. Admiral Collins appeared on the main screen looking completely relaxed. Behind him, the bridge of the Defiance hummed with quiet activity. Collins looked directly at Thexvar with eyes that showed no fear, only cold calculation. "War Marshal, I am Admiral Collins of the United Earth Space Command," Collins said calmly. "You are trespassing in human space with hostile intent. Turn your fleet around immediately and return to Zephyrian territory. This is your only warning." Thexvar laughed harshly. "Admiral, your 300 ships face 10,000 of mine. Surrender now, and I will allow your crews to live as slaves. Continue this foolish resistance and I will turn every human world into radioactive debris." Collins' expression did not change. "War Marshal, you are looking at this situation incorrectly. You do not face 300 human ships. You face 300 human ships that you can see." Before Thexvar could respond, his tactical officer screamed in alarm. "Sir, massive energy signatures are appearing throughout our formation. Unknown contacts materializing on all sides." The space around the Zephyrian fleet suddenly filled with human warships that had been hidden by stealth technology beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. What looked like 300 vessels became 3,000 in seconds. The Zephyrians found themselves surrounded and outnumbered. "Begin Operation Sledgehammer," Collins commanded quietly. The human fleet opened fire, simultaneously with weapons that defied every known law of physics. Particle beams moving at 90% of light speed punched through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Gravity projectors crushed enemy ships into balls of compressed metal. Quantum torpedoes phased through armor to detonate inside. Enemy hulls. Captain Susan Lee's mining fleet struck the Zephyrian rear with devastating effect. Her gravity weapons reached out invisible fingers to grab enemy ships and twist them apart. Massive battle cruisers that had dominated space for centuries crumpled like tin cans in the hands of an angry giant. "Target their command vessels first," Lee ordered her squadron. "Cut off their coordination and the fleet will fall apart." Commander Rick Torres led the frontal assault with weapons that turned matter into pure energy. His squadron of disguised cargo haulers revealed missile launchers that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. When the missiles hit their targets, the kinetic energy was enough to vaporize entire city blocks. "Sir, the enemy shields cannot stop our projectiles," Torres reported to Collins. "Our velocity gives us too much penetration power," requesting permission to engage their flagship. Collins granted permission and watched as humanity's hidden arsenal was revealed to the galaxy. Every peaceful merchant vessel became a warship. Every research station became a fortress. Every mining platform became a weapons platform. Dr. Amanda Green unleashed humanity's most terrifying creation from her laboratory ship, hidden in the outer system. Swarms of self-replicating combat drones poured into space like metallic locusts. Each drone was no larger than a human hand, but carried enough explosive power to cripple a destroyer. The drones learned from every engagement, sharing information instantaneously across the swarm. When Zephyrian weapons destroyed some drones, the survivors adapted their tactics immediately. Within minutes, the swarm had learned to avoid every defensive system in the enemy fleet. War Marshal Thexvar watched in horror as his mighty armada disintegrated around him. Ships that had conquered a dozen worlds exploded like firecrackers. Battle formations that had terrified the galaxy for centuries scattered in panic. The largest fleet in Zephyrian history was being systematically destroyed by opponents they had dismissed as primitives. "Sir, we have lost 60% of our vessels," his tactical officer reported with panic in his voice. "The human weapons are unlike anything in our databases. Our shields and armor provide no protection." Thexvar tried to rally his forces, but the humans gave him no time to reorganize. Every attempt to form defensive positions was shattered by weapons that struck from impossible angles. His communications with other ships were jammed by technology that should not exist. Admiral Collins opened a direct channel to the Zephyrian flagship. War Marshal, your fleet is defeated. Order your remaining ships to surrender, and I will allow them to withdraw. Continue fighting, and I will destroy every vessel in your armada. What are you? Thexvar screamed at the human commander. No species possesses such power. Where did these weapons come from? Collins's voice carried across the void with the weight of absolute authority. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and nuclear wars. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us for millions of years and failed. We learned to fight because everything else learned to hunt us. The Zephyrian fleet began breaking apart as individual captains abandoned formation to save their own ships. Some tried to flee toward friendly space only to find their escape routes blocked by more human vessels. Others attempted to ram human ships in desperation, but found their targets protected by shields that could deflect asteroids. Within 6 hours, the mighty Zephyrian armada was reduced to scattered survivors fleeing in terror. Of the 10,000 ships that had entered human space, fewer than 1,000 escaped to carry word of their defeat back to the Empire. The rest became debris floating in the void or prisoners of war aboard human vessels. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council convened 3 days after the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Harmony Prime with expressions ranging from awe to terror. The great chamber buzzed with nervous conversation as species tried to understand the new reality they faced. President Helen Carter entered the hall with the same calm dignity she had shown before the war. But now other delegates looked at her differently. They no longer saw the leader of a junior species seeking guidance from their betters. They saw someone who commanded the most powerful military force in galactic history. Ambassador Veltar called the session to order with hands that trembled slightly. The tall Centauri diplomat had spent decades maintaining peace between different species, but nothing had prepared him for this situation. How do you negotiate with beings who can destroy entire fleets without breaking stride? President Carter, the Council requires explanation of the events in the Kepler system. Veltar said formally. The destruction of the Zephyrian armada has created unprecedented instability throughout the galaxy. Carter rose slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. She looked around at faces that showed fear, respect, and desperate curiosity. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who no longer needed to ask permission for anything. Honored representatives, the events in Kepler system were regrettable but necessary, Carter began calmly. The Zephyrian Empire chose to attack civilian targets with weapons of mass destruction. Humanity responded with appropriate force to defend our people and prevent future aggression. The Andromedan delegates' tentacles writhed with agitation. Appropriate force? You destroyed 9,000 warships in a single engagement. The Zephyrian military has been essentially eliminated as a galactic power. Yes, Carter replied simply. That was the intention. When someone tries to exterminate your families, you make sure they cannot try again. Murmurs filled the chamber as the implications sank in. Humanity had not simply defeated the Zephyrians, they had removed them as a military threat entirely. The empire that had bullied smaller species for centuries was suddenly helpless before human power. General Frank Mitchell stepped forward with data tablets containing detailed reports. The Council has requested information about human military capabilities. I am prepared to share basic specifications for our defensive systems and strategic doctrine. He activated holographic displays that filled the chamber with technical diagrams and tactical analyses. Representatives leaned forward, eagerly trying to understand technology that seemed to violate known physics. Our primary advantage is adaptability, Mitchell explained matter-of-factly. Zephyrian tactics had not changed in 3 centuries. They relied on overwhelming firepower and brute force. We studied their methods and designed specific counters for every weapon system in their arsenal. The Rigel ambassador's crystalline body flickered with anxious patterns. General Mitchell, are you saying that humanity has been preparing specifically for war with the Zephyrians? We have been preparing for war with anyone who might threaten human civilians, Mitchell replied. The Zephyrians simply happened to be first. Our contingency plans include responses to military action by any species in the coalition. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. The humans had not just been building weapons, they had been analyzing every potential enemy and developing specific strategies to defeat them. Every species present suddenly wondered what countermeasures existed for their own military forces. Dr. Amanda Green took the podium to explain humanity's approach to military technology. She looked like a harmless scientist, but everyone now knew that her research had produced the drone swarms that devastated the Zephyrian fleet. Distinguished colleagues, we have always believed that the best defense is making aggression too costly to attempt, Green said pleasantly. Our weapon systems are designed to end conflicts quickly with minimal casualties on both sides. Extended wars help no one. The vegan trade representative chittered nervously. Dr. Green, your drones appeared to learn and adapt during combat. How is such rapid evolution possible? Green smiled. Each drone shares its experiences with all others instantaneously through quantum entanglement networks. When one drone learns to avoid a specific weapon, every drone in the swarm gains that knowledge immediately. The more they fight, the more dangerous they become. Captain Jake Morrison watched the proceedings from the human delegation's seating area. His exploration vessel, the Horizon, was now revealed to be a military scout ship equipped with sensors that could map enemy defenses. From light years away, Jake had spent years gathering intelligence while pretending to conduct peaceful surveys. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood to address the Council's concerns about humanity's future intentions. She had negotiated with these species for years while secretly reporting on their capabilities and vulnerabilities. Now she would help establish the new order that human power had created. Honored representatives, humanity seeks no empire or conquest, Rodriguez said clearly. We want to continue our membership in the coalition as peaceful partners in exploration and trade, but certain principles are not negotiable. She activated a display showing human colony worlds and shipping routes. Red zones indicated areas where any military action against civilian targets would trigger immediate human retaliation. Any species that threatens human civilians with weapons of mass destruction will face the full response of our military forces, Rodriguez continued. Any government that targets families and children will be removed from power. These are not threats, they are statements of policy. War Marshal Thexvar was brought before the Council as a prisoner of war. The once proud Zephyrian commander looked broken and defeated. His empire's fleet was destroyed. His homeworld was under coalition occupation and his species faced an uncertain future. War Marshal, you initiated this conflict by firing antimatter missiles at civilian targets, Carter said, directly. What justification can you offer for attempted genocide? Thexvar raised his scarred head and looked at her with something approaching respect. I believed humans were weak prey animals that needed to be reminded of their place. I was wrong. You are predators disguised as herbivores. My people paid the price for my ignorance. The prisoner's honesty surprised many delegates. Even in defeat, Thexvar showed more wisdom than he had as a conqueror. He understood that his species had provoked something far beyond their ability to control. President Carter announced humanity's plans for the post-war galaxy. Human ships would patrol major trade routes, ensuring safe passage for all species. Human technology would be shared with peaceful governments to help them defend against aggression. Human military advisors would assist in training coalition forces. We do not want to rule the galaxy, Carter stated firmly. We want to protect it. There are threats in the void beyond our current borders that will require united response. The Zephyrian attack proved that some species still think in terms of conquest and domination. That mindset must change. Captain Susan Lee was given command of the new combined fleet that would enforce peace throughout coalition space. Her mining ship disguise had been abandoned, revealing her true identity as one of humanity's most experienced combat commanders. Former enemies would now serve under human officers dedicated to protecting innocent life. The Centauri delegate Veltar posed the question that everyone was thinking. President Carter, what assurance do we have that humanity will not use its power to dominate other species? Carter considered the question carefully before answering. Ambassador, you have no assurance except our character and our history. Judge us by our actions, not our capabilities. We could have conquered the galaxy years ago if that was our intention. Instead, we chose to reveal ourselves only when faced with attempted genocide. Dr. Kate Sullivan, appeared via hologram from New Austin Colony to demonstrate humanity's commitment to peaceful development. The world that had been targeted for destruction was now helping to coordinate relief efforts for displaced Zephyrian civilians. The shields that protected our people from antimatter missiles are now being used to provide emergency shelter for refugees, Sullivan reported. Human medical teams are treating wounded Zephyrians alongside our own casualties. We make war on governments, not populations. The session concluded with the signing of new coalition protocols that recognized humanity's special role in maintaining galactic security. Human forces would have the authority to intervene anywhere that civilian populations faced military attack. It was a responsibility that came with tremendous power. As delegates filed out of the chamber, many stopped to speak with human representatives. Former adversaries sought alliance and protection. Peaceful species offered cooperation and support. Everyone understood that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Ambassador Rodriguez remained behind to speak with President Carter privately. They had both worked for years toward this moment, when humanity would no longer need to hide its true strength. Helen, do you think they will accept the new reality? Rodriguez asked quietly.